There is a particular kind of silence that fills the room after the applause has died down. When the awards have been collected, the promotions announced, the congratulations offered and received. It's a silence that doesn't feel like peace, but rather like the space between breaths when you're waiting for the next wave of panic to hit. The overachiever knows this silence intimately. They stand in rooms filled with evidence of their success, the diplomas, the trophies, the business cards with impressive titles, and yet they feel like an imposter waiting to be discovered. The ambition that drove them to these heights now feels like a cage they built with their own hands. What happens when the very thing that defines you, your drive, your competence, your relentless pursuit of excellence, begins to feel like a prison? When the shadow of ambition grows so long, it eclipses everything else. The paradox of the overachiever lies in this fundamental contradiction. The more they achieve, the less they feel they deserve their achievements. Every success becomes not a celebration, but another brick in the wall of expectations they must now maintain. The straight A student who feels like a fraud because they only got 98% instead of 100. The CEO who lies awake at night, convinced the board will discover they're not qualified. The artist whose gallery show sells out, but who can't look at their own work without seeing every imperfection. This isn't simply modesty or humility. It's a psychological phenomenon that runs much deeper. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the parts of ourselves we repress, deny, or hide because they don't fit the image we want to present to the world. For the overachiever, the shadow contains all the vulnerabilities, doubts, and perceived inadequacies that their ambition tries to outrun. They build a persona of competence and control, while their shadow holds the fear of being ordinary, the terror of failure, the deep-seated belief that they must earn love and acceptance through achievement. The tragedy is that the more successful they become, the wider the gap grows between their public persona and their private shadow. They become strangers to themselves, performing a version of success that feels increasingly hollow. Psychologists call this phenomenon imposter syndrome, the persistent inability to believe that one's success is deserved or has been legitimately achieved as a result of one's own efforts or skills. But it goes deeper than just feeling like a fraud. It's rooted in what Jung called the persona, the mask we wear to navigate the social world. For the overachiever, the persona becomes a prison of perfectionism. Every achievement is attributed to luck, timing, or simply working harder than everyone else, never to genuine capability. This creates a psychological feedback loop. The more they achieve, the more pressure they feel to maintain the facade, and the more disconnected they become from their authentic self. The shadow grows in the darkness of this disconnection. It holds all the qualities the overachiever cannot acknowledge in themselves: vulnerability, neediness, imperfection, the capacity to fail. Modern psychology, through the lens of internal family systems theory, might describe this as an over-reliance on the manager part, the aspect of ourselves that tries to control everything to avoid pain. The manager works tirelessly to maintain the image of competence, but in doing so, it exiles all the vulnerable, uncertain, and authentic parts of the self. The overachiever becomes trapped in what psychologists call the hedonic treadmill, constantly chasing the next achievement, believing it will finally bring the satisfaction and self-acceptance they crave, only to find that the goalposts keep moving. Each success provides only temporary relief before the anxiety returns, often stronger than before. This isn't just about external validation. It's about an internal wiring that equates self-worth with productivity and achievement. The overachiever's nervous system becomes conditioned to seek the dopamine hit of accomplishment, while their capacity for genuine contentment atrophies. They become experts in doing, but novices in being. The very ambition that once felt like fuel begins to feel like a furnace that must be constantly fed, consuming everything in its path: relationships, health, peace of mind, joy. There comes a moment, often in the quiet hours of the night or in the space between tasks, when the armor begins to feel heavy, when the achievements no longer sparkle but gather dust, when the overachiever looks in the mirror and doesn't recognize the person staring back. This moment of reckoning isn't failure, it's the beginning of integration. It's the shadow knocking at the door, not to destroy, but to be acknowledged, to be invited back home. The tears that fall in these moments aren't weakness. They're the thawing of a heart that has been frozen in the pursuit of perfection. The exhaustion isn't burnout. It's the body's wisdom saying, enough. The longing for something more meaningful than another trophy isn't ingratitude. It's the soul's hunger for authenticity. This is where the real work begins. Not in achieving more, but in learning to be with what is, in allowing the vulnerable parts to speak, in listening to the fear without letting it drive the car, in recognizing that the imposter feeling isn't proof of inadequacy, but evidence of humanity. The overachiever must learn the most difficult skill of all: how to rest without feeling guilty, how to receive praise without deflecting it, how to look at their accomplishments and say, I did that, instead of, I got lucky, how to separate their worth from their output. This isn't about abandoning ambition, but about transforming it from a taskmaster into a companion, about learning that true strength includes the capacity to be soft. That real confidence includes the humility to not know everything, that the most courageous act might be to do nothing at all. The integration of the shadow isn't about becoming less ambitious, but about becoming more whole. It's about recognizing that the drive for excellence and the capacity for rest can coexist. That the person who achieves great things and the person who sometimes fails are not enemies, but different aspects of the same human being. The overachiever's journey toward wholeness involves learning to hold both their competence and their vulnerability in the same hands. To acknowledge that the same person who can lead a boardroom meeting might also need to cry in the shower sometimes. That the mind that solves complex problems might also get overwhelmed by simple decisions. This integration creates a new kind of ambition, one that is sustainable, compassionate, and aligned with one's deepest values rather than external validation. It's the difference between climbing a mountain because you're running from something and climbing it because you want to see the view. The shadow side of ambition doesn't disappear when we acknowledge it. It transforms. The fear of failure becomes respect for the learning process. The need for validation becomes the capacity for self-validation. The relentless drive becomes focused intention. The overachiever learns that their worth isn't in what they achieve, but in who they become through the journey. That the most profound success isn't measured in trophies or titles, but in the quiet moments when they can look at themselves, all of themselves, and feel not like an imposter, but like someone who is exactly where they're meant to be. The ambition that once felt like a cage becomes the wings that allow them to fly, not away from themselves, but deeper into who they truly are.